Just a short introduction. Here we have a doctor, and he's a doctor but specializes in sports medicine. So he's from Brescia, and he is a consultant here at the Medicine Sports Center 3 times a week. So this sports medical center has been here in Casalmaggiore for 13 years, but this is the first time that the doctor is also an athlete, because he was an athlete, he was a runner, and yesterday he took part in the Milan Marathon.
Quindi oggi vi parlerò dello sport e prevenzione. Quindi per capire l'importanza dello sport nella prevenzione delle malattie, inizierò a parlarvi delle cause di morte. O meglio, vi farò vedere alcune statistiche inerenti alle cause di morte in Europa e nel mondo.
So to speak about sports and prevention of illnesses is going to start with the causes of death in Europe. So what are the causes of death in Europe? Okay, as you can see in the slide, the first cause of death is circulatory disease and heart disease. This is a value calculated on 1,000 people. 100,000, sorry, people. So according to this research, 373 people die out of 100,000 people die for circulatory disease, cholesterol, heart attack, okay, high blood pressure, and smoking. So this is already in English, so I think you can see it. Most of people dying from ischemic heart diseases are, as you can see, male, the blue one. And this is the first cause of death, and then cerebrovascular diseases, and then bronchus, lung, and cancer, I think, the third one. But as you can see, there are more men than women. Okay, second place of causes of death, cancer, lung cancer, and colorectal cancer, and third place, respiratory diseases. So, as you can see here, ischemic heart disease and stroke are the world's biggest killers. And according to the World Health Organization, there were 15 million deaths in 2015
Anche qui al primo posto
and as you can see, what it remarks is that first place is always taken by cardiocirculatory illnesses, so ischemic heart attack, first place, and stroke, second place. In the third place, lower respiratory infection. We spoke about infections because there are many countries in the world where infections are very diffused. So as you can see here, there is an explanation of cardiovascular diseases. What are cardiovascular diseases? They are a group of disorders of the heart and blood vessels. They include coronary heart disease, which is a disease of the blood vessels supplying the heart muscles, cerebrovascular disease, so every vessel supplying blood to the brain, and the peripheral arterial disease, so anything connected with the vessels supplying blood to the arms and legs. So other cardiovascular diseases are linked with rheumatic heart disease, and this disease damages the heart and the valves and they are caused by rheumatic fever and the bacteria. Congenital heart disease because it often happens that someone has problems because of malformations existing already at birth, and thrombosis in the veins or embolism. So what are heart attacks and strokes? They are acute events, and they are mainly caused by a blockage that prevents blood from flowing to the heart and brain. There are particular events or causes that produce these strokes. So, as you can read, the most common cause for these events is a build-up of fatty deposits on the inner walls of the blood vessels that supply the heart or brain. So if there is fat inside a vessel, the blood doesn't pass. Okay, here as you can see, the yellow part is the fat, and the more fat there is, the less blood passes in the vessels. And at the moment when the fat is too much, there is, as you can see, this block of blood which stops circulation, and then this is the cause of a heart attack or a brain stroke. Okay, so the fats, the fat which stops the blood circulation is called the atheromasic fat.
Ed è un fattore di rischio cardiovascolare.
And this is a very high heart attack risk indicator. So the cause of heart attacks and strokes are usually the presence of a combination of risk factors such as tobacco use, unhealthy diet, physical inactivity, harmful use of alcohol. And what is important to underline is that it is us who choose about our life. So it is us who choose if we can prevent heart attacks or not. So we said that tobacco use, unhealthy diet, physical inactivity, harmful use of alcohol can be chosen. We can decide whether to use tobacco or not, whether to eat healthy or not. But there are also other risk factors which we cannot decide on. For example, these are globalization, urbanization, population aging, and also stress, hereditary factors. So the effects of risk factors may show up in individuals as overweight and obesity, because we all know that obese people run more risks of heart attacks, for example, raised blood lipids, raised blood glucose, and raised blood pressure. But we can do something to prevent these risk factors if we measure them in medical centers. So before doing anything, maybe any sports activity or in our normal life, we can keep our blood pressure measured, we can measure our glucose and lipids, and then if the value is too high, we can do something to prevent illnesses. So, how to reduce these risk factors? It is very simple and necessary. Every one of us can adopt these rules in our life. Of course, first place, stop using tobacco, or not starting using tobacco for young students. Reducing salt in the diet, because salt is bad for high pressure. Eating or consuming more fruits and vegetables. avoid harmful use of alcohol, so do not drink alcoholic drinks, and of course, do regular physical activity. So, scientific studies showed that reducing this risk factor will be followed, or was followed by a reduced illnesses in people. And the policy supporting sports activities help people to improve their health. Okay. Everyone knows that sport is good for health. So as you can read, sport is good for your health, and physical exercise is one of the therapies for people with cardiovascular risk factors, because doctors always suggest to walk for 1 hour a day or half an hour. Suggerimento del medico, camminare mezz'ora al giorno. Okay, 40 minutes. 40 minutes a day, walking 40 minutes a day. And if the physical exercise is carried out constantly over time, it causes, of course, weight loss. And losing weight means a better blood pressure, less cholesterol, and less blood glucose. So, sport can be dangerous, and this is why we have sports doctors, because sports doctors have a very important role for people who regularly do sport. And sport is not dangerous for everyone, but it can be dangerous for people who with cardiovascular risk factors, the risk factors we saw before, so it can be dangerous for overweight and obesity, for raised blood glucose, for raised blood lipids, and raised blood pressure. So why is sport, or why can sport be dangerous? Because, as you know, sport exercise increases oxygen consumption by the muscles and the heart. As a matter of fact, the heart is the muscles, and the increase of oxygen consumption will increase breathing, because muscles need more oxygen to produce energy. So heart rates increase, because the oxygen must be carried to muscles through vessels, and blood pressure will increase as well, because blood pressure helps and push the blood in the vessels. So if there is a plaque that decreases the blood flow, there will be less oxygen which will reach the heart.
E si formerà un'ischemia.
And an ischemia is formed.
Che può causare un infarto o un ictus.
And this ischemia could cause heart attack and a stroke. To summarize, physical exercise is useful for your health because it reduces the risk factors of cardiovascular disease.
Infatti.
But it can be dangerous for people who have cardiovascular problems, high pressures, raised blood glucose, because it can increase the risks to have a heart attack or a stroke. So, how can we understand which subjects, which people are at risk of heart attack and stroke? So that's why we do prevention, and that's why it's important to undergo a visit, a medical visit, before starting or before doing any kind of sport. So how to do prevention? It's necessary to identify people who have these cardiovascular risk factors and their effects. So, for example, to know the eating habits of people and understand if their diet is unhealthy, to know if a person smokes, to know if he does regular activity or if he is inactive, if he drinks, if he has a raised blood pressure or if he has a raised blood glucose, raised blood lipids, and of course if he or she is overweight. Okay, in Italy, to do any physical activity, people have to undergo medical examination. People and students as well, because you know that students in our school who do competition must have a certificate, a doctor's certificate. So when you come to our school, you are asked to give us this certificate. And the two laws that oblige people to undergo medical examination are the decree of the Italian Ministry of Health of 18 February 1982 and the one of 2013. Who is obliged to undergo a medical sports examination? Only the people or students who practice sports in National Sports Federation and in school. So as I told you before, students who do the school physical education do not need any certificate unless they take part into competition, outside competition, so regional or national competition. In this case, they are obliged to have their medical certification. So those who practice sport outside the national sports federations are not obliged to undergo the preventive medical examination. It remains optional and advised, but it happens that people have to sign a personal certification that they are in good health, which is not very well. So sport in Italy is divided into three major categories: competitive sports, non-competitive sports, and recreational sports. So the first two sides, competitive sport and non-competitive, people are obligated by law to undergo pre-participation screening. For recreational sports, for the other recreational sports, there is no law obligation. But what about these competitive or non-competitive sports subjected to the law? These are people who do sports at school, outside the school, and these are obligated to undergo pre-participation screening. Okay, not the others. Okay, these people, they are amateur and they do sports in an autonomous way, and they are not obliged to undergo medical screening. So, how is the preparation screening carried out? The first step is an interview with the athletes, and in this interview the athlete tells about his history, family history and personal history, to see if there are any hereditary maybe. Okay, the second phase is the physical examination, which is divided into 4 steps. So first step, measurement of anthropometric parameters, weight and height, auscultation and medical palpation, measurement blood pressure at rest, and visus measurements. So the third phase is the instrumental examination. So there is a resting electrocardiogram, clinical urine test, spirometry, and then the stress electrocardiogram and measurement blood pressure. So the final outcome of the preparation screening will be the final evaluation. And final evaluation can have three results. You can be eligible, so you can do sports. Non-eligible, so you will not be able to do any sports, and then suspended. So you rest for a while. You will undergo further medical examinations, and at the end you will be told if you are eligible or not. So in this slide you can understand the importance of the prevention medical examination, because it shows the trends in a sudden cardiovascular death in young competitive athletes. And the doctor made an example, because just yesterday there was a death in a cycling, the Paris-Roubaix cycling tour, where an athlete died. He was not Italian. So in these slides, in the lower part, you see a comparison between screened athletes and unscreened athletes in a period of 26 years. And what was measured was the percentage of sudden cardiovascular death decrease in 26 years. Okay, and we will see the result. The first red line, 1982, is the introduction of the law, when people were obliged to undergo medical examination. Before, there were a higher percentage of death for people doing sports. So the 4.2 average of people died of people doing sports died for heart disease. After the law, the sudden cardiovascular death percentage decreased, because people doing sports were obliged to undergo medical examination. But the rates of death was still high for people practicing sports, but for people who practice sports and didn't undergo medical examination. So this is the reduction, 89% of reduction of deaths for those people practicing sports and undergoing medical examination. So this graph shows the number of athletes who underwent medical examination at the medical center of Padua, and here you can see the percentage of athletes who were suspended, the 9%, and 2% were non-eligible. This slide shows the situation here in Casalmaggiore, in the athletic sports center where he works, and in nearly 3 years, 2,851 athletes were screened, and these were the results. So 95% of athletes were eligible, 4% suspended, and so on. So to add this lecture, an advice, so it suggests you or everyone who does sports undergo medical screening, because statistics say that 1 child out of 3 is obese, and as I explained before, obesity is one of the causes of future illnesses such as heart attack.
Grazie, e soprattutto grazie a Carlo Rassano di consentirmi di lavorare presso il suo centro di medicina dello sport e fare la prevenzione medico-sportiva.
So, thank you. opportunity to work in the medical center and to keep on working about sports, with sports and work on medical prevention.